It's Josh Wilson, Fall Apart. On Vision Christian Radio, it's Neil Johnson with you. It's the Wednesday edition of 2020 and a conversation you might like to join into coming through this next hour. Very shortly, we'll open our talkback lines. You might have your own insight to offer. It might be a question, it might be a comment, it might even be a critique. You'll be welcome to be a part of our conversation today. We're going to be talking about Christians and natural medicine. We're exploring some elements of health and faith today with a special guest who integrates her Christian faith into her naturopathic practice. Naturopathy deals with natural medicine as an alternative approach to mainstream medicine. Some Christians express concern about naturopathy, often because of a perceived philosophical tie to New Age spirituality. So how does Christian faith align with naturopathic practice? After all, the concept of natural remedies is for many listeners a high priority, and there's considerable doubt over the power, influence and integrity of mainstream medicine pushed by Big Pharma. A conversation today about natural remedies and discussing connection to biblical teachings. Esther Thomas is a Christian clinical naturopath. She's the founder of Olea Health, a clinic that emphasises healing for body, mind and spirit. She's married to an Associate Baptist pastor. There's a good context in that, and is a former school chaplain too. Esther, a special welcome along to 2020.
Thanks, Neil. It's a joy to be here and be able to talk to all of you about a topic that's very close to my heart.
Well, Esther, let's start with what might be one of the more controversial things around natural medicine, the idea that naturopathy is aligned with the New Age and you shouldn't have anything much to do with that. I guess you get that sort of comment from time to time?
Yes. And so I started doing investigations through the GP. I was there all the time doing blood tests and all sorts of things. And basically because my are a little unsure. And there's definitely that question of, if I see a naturopath, am I dabbling in something New Age? So definitely get that question.
Okay. What about this sort of New Age image? And you might even extend that even further, the thought of, an old haggard woman standing around, with a big pot, adding all sorts of herbs and saying incantations over something like a witch's brew. I mean, there's all sorts of things come to mind when we start to talk about natural medicine.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think, in a sense, I feel like the idea of natural medicine has been hijacked in some senses of that image of a witch standing over a brew of herbs and saying incantations and everything like that. But definitely naturopathy in itself is not New Age. And I think being natural medicine, it attracts people of that New Age mindset that are into natural things. And so you do, of course, get people who are into New Age within naturopathy. But naturopathy itself, there's nothing spiritual about it. It's science-based and
so science-based,
yes.
And there are some natural remedies that clearly do good when you take them.
Yep.
The hijacking thing comes when you've got others who might be aligned with some sort of Eastern spirituality.
Yes.
And they're doing things like praying their Eastern spiritual prayers over their patients and introducing a real mystical mindset to some of their naturopathy.
Absolutely.
And so the question might come, I mean, as a Christian, is there a Christian version of that? Do you pray for your patients, in the name of Jesus?
Yep.
This sort of thing, how does that work with Christians and naturopathy?
Yeah, so as a whole, I practice mostly science-based. So, naturopaths, they study a Bachelor of Health Science, and there are some people that call themselves naturopaths that are actually not naturopaths, and so you have to be careful of that as well, making sure you've got somebody who is degree qualified. So that's really important. And then doing some research around if you can see if they're into anything New Age. For the most part, they shouldn't be, and if they are, they usually would specify, I also might do Reiki or something like that, which you say, obviously no to. But for me personally, as a Christian, I attract a lot of Christian patients to my clinic. So for those that I know who are Christian, I definitely always try and incorporate God into my consults. So I often offer to pray with them during the consult. For me, as well as a Christian, I'm relying on research, but I'm also relying on wisdom from God, from the Holy Spirit's leading in what I do for each of my patients. So definitely pray every day. And for those that are Christians, I offer to pray for them within the consult. And all of them just absolutely love that aspect, because I say, well, God has given us all of these beautiful things through creation to be able to utilize. But at the end of the day, God is also healer. And so we do what we can for our physical bodies. We look after our bodies, but we also trust in the one who created us for healing as well.
Do you find that some of your patients or clients, do you call them patients, or do you
call them patients?
Yep. So do you find that some of your patients, they come to you and they've been to other naturopaths who have had this sort of Eastern mystical, almost cultic reliance on all sorts of other strange faith?
Yes.
And then they come to you and they notice there's a difference. How do you how do you reconcile that? Do they come from that background? Even the Christians.
Yes. Yeah. So I definitely, some of my patients have seen other naturopaths who they've said, oh, I just didn't feel quite comfortable with a few of the things that they were doing, and I have a separate kind of advertising for my Christian naturopathy as well. And so a lot of people will Google search for a Christian naturopath and find me. And so they say, I just want to find someone that aligns with my values so I feel safe and I don't feel like I have to cover myself in prayer every time I go and see my naturopath. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you've got your own story to tell as well. Let us in on what you were battling and natural remedies that were able to help you on your pathway.
Yeah, so basically my journey started when I was 14. I went from being really sporty, age champion at school, really fit, and then all of a sudden just so fatigued that I couldn't get out of bed. It was quite a drastic change, and I ended up having to have half a year off school, struggled to even walk down the stairs. And so I started doing investigations through the GP. I was there all the time doing blood tests and all sorts of things. And basically, because my blood tests were coming back as normal, the GP was saying, well, there's not much wrong with her. I think it's just being a teenager. And so that was quite frustrating because it was clear that there was something wrong and we weren't getting answers. And that's where I actually had... I was living on Russell Island at the time, actually, and going to a beautiful church over there, and a naturopath named Alan Profke. He was a beautiful Christian man. He came and he spoke at our church, and that's where we started to go, hey, maybe there's some other pieces to the puzzle and there's some other things to explore. Before that, I didn't even know what a naturopath was. So, so moving on from that, I started to see him. I started to make some changes to my diet, taking some certain supplements and things like that. And straight away, he knew what was going on and how to treat it. And for me, it was just a light bulb of how come this isn't more straightforward in the mainstream? How come we're not taught a lot of these things in school? And there was just a chain of events that led me down a road of, okay, I want to do my own research. I want to look into this more. So I found myself researching a lot in my spare time, and my health improved drastically. And then later on down the line, I also got diagnosed with endometriosis. So there was a few things going on in my health, and I wouldn't have been able to figure that out if I hadn't seen a naturopath.
No doubt there'll be some listeners who might be thinking, what are the remedies that you took to help you along that direction? And
yes.
We should open our talkback line and just allow listeners to come into our conversation today. Lots of dimensions that you can explore here.
Yes.
And I'm sure that Esther won't mind even sharing some thoughts around some issues and treatments that you might try, because listeners, Esther, are all around Australia and sometimes in very remote places, and oftentimes reliant on perhaps what you call, I guess, orthodox medicine, the medicine that's taught in the university for our doctors.
Yep.
It's not that long ago, is it, that naturopathy became more of a orthodox science on its own? I mean, can you reflect on that, the history and when naturopathy became more a mainstream, something that you should actually think more about?
Yeah, I think obviously natural medicine has been around since the beginning of time. So it's and in many cultures it's more part of the mainstream and has been for a long period of time. I think in the West, because there's been a little bit more of a pharmaceutical focus when seeing a GP, and because GPs see so many patients throughout the day, often only get 10 minutes with their patients, and there's a lot of burden on mainstream medicine. I think the focus from preventative medicine has shifted. So you kind of go when you've got something going on and you might take some antibiotics or you might take some sort of medication, but there's not enough time to kind of go deeper and get to the root cause, and it's less taught in those degrees now as well. So people have started to think, well, I don't actually just want to take a medication, I want to actually get to the root cause. Or for people that aren't unwell but want to have long-lasting good health, they go, well, I want to know how to look after my body. I want to know how to eat balanced meals and to take supplements for my health and things like that. So that's where I find a lot of people have been shifting towards naturopaths and nutritionists, because it's kind of preventative medicine, root cause medicine, getting to the actual issue so we can have healing into the future.
We might get to some conversation around whether it's one or the other or both.
Yep.
But just before we take a short breather break, the thought of aligning a naturopathy with a biblical understanding. I mean, come back to God. What has God got to say about whether things are natural? Does he speak into the orthodox medicine and also some alternative medicines, natural therapies and things?
Yep.
What do you understand from the scriptures?
Absolutely. I think the mention of food and herbs and other things is right throughout Scripture. God is the creator of herbs. He's the creator of plants. So when you start to study herbs and vegetables and fruits and all of these things down to their scientific core level of all of the constituents that work together synergistically to produce a result, you go, wow, God created that for a purpose. And definitely throughout my degree, that was very solidified, that this is not just random. This is created amazingly by God. And so for me, it's so clear that God has created these things. And when you look at different herbs and different plants that have different medicinal properties, you go, well, God obviously knew that we needed these things for our benefit, for our health. And so there's tons and tons of scriptures. The one that I often quote is obviously the one of that we should love God, which is the first commandment. We should love God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, and with all of our strength. So this is one that I often quote, in that it's a whole body. It's not just we pray every day and we eat McDonald's every day and hope for the best. It's we want to honor God with our bodies. So what we put in our bodies, how we look after this temple God's given us. We want to honor him with our mind, with our thoughts, with every aspect of ourselves. So yeah, there's tons of scriptures in Ezekiel 47 verse 12. It talks about that the fruit will be for food and the leaves for healing. Genesis 1:29-30 talks about that, behold, I've given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. Psalm 104 verse 14 says, he causes the grass to grow for the cattle and herbs for the service of man. 1 Timothy 5:23 says, no longer drink only water, but use a little wine for your stomach's sake and for your frequent infirmities. So it's talking about the medicinal uses of that. And Isaiah 38 verse 21 says, let them take a lump of figs and apply it as a poultice on the boil, and he shall recover. So that's just a few examples of the ways that herbs and plants are talked about in Scripture.
Wonderful stuff. I want to open talkback lines, 1800 316 316. You can send us a text on 0447 488 316. Esther Thomas is our guest, a Christian clinical naturopath. You're on Vision. It's Neil with you on 2020. Christians and natural medicine we're talking about today. Our talkback line is open on 1800 316 316. Our special guest is Esther Thomas, a Christian clinical naturopath. She's the founder of Olea Health, a clinic that emphasises healing for body, mind and spirit. 1800 316 316. In fact, Esther, why don't we let listeners help direct where our conversation goes today? Bernadette is in Kingston in South Australia. Hey, Bernadette, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Neil. Yes, I've been very interested hearing about what Esther's saying about healing, because I've got a friend who started getting into natural healing. I'm a lady on that called Barbara O'Neill, and so I've started trying some of those things, and I've tried putting cloves and castor oil together, and I've had earaches. Really helped with a little cotton bud, helped my ears, and a bit of castor oil at night on the side of my head. Supposed to help the headache. I'm finding that's really helping.
Yep.
And in the morning, I've been having natural salt and having a drink of ginger, lemon juice, a little bit of oil first thing in the morning, and I'm finding it's good for my tummy.
Great.
And, so those things have been a real help what I've been taking. And I think there's a lot to say with the natural. I mean, there's a place for some medicine, but then I've had a real reaction with some medicines, like I've had some, like ibuprofen and some of those things, and they haven't worked for me, so I thought, no, so...
Bernadette, wonderful to hear from you. Let's get a thought or two from Esther. Esther, what are you thinking when you're hearing from Bernadette?
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're doing a lot of good things, and that's really, really great. I definitely agree with you that there's a place for both, which I think mainstream medicine and natural medicine, which we'll touch on a little bit more, I think, throughout this show. But it sounds like you're getting a lot of good relief, which is really, really great. And the only thing I would...
Say that again, Bernadette.
There was just one thing. I have got inflamed legs at the moment, and I'm wondering if you can suggest something I can put on my legs, which are a bit like burning, like inflammation on my legs. Yes.
Burning on the outside of your legs, so like a redness? Yeah?
Red.
And did you say swelling as well?
Not swelling, just I feel like they're burning, if you can suggest anything for that. Then on top of that, I got bitten as well. It's like inflammation upon inflammation. So it's like I was looking after someone's cat and then got bite. So it's like there's inflammation on it. Can you think? I'm putting calamine on it, but
lots of things going on for you, Bernadette. Esther, thoughts around a couple of those things that Bernadette's sharing?
Definitely. Our skin is one of the places that usually highlight a deeper issue going on. So the skin, most of the time, it's not reacting from an external environmental thing. Sometimes it is, but often it's saying, okay, there's something deeper going on here. So like you mentioned, maybe some inflammation is happening in the body. Maybe there's some weakness going on in the gut microbiome. Definitely it sounds like... from an inflammation point of view, I would be focusing on really trying to eliminate super inflammatory things from the diet. So things like your processed foods, your sugars, and things sometimes like gluten and dairy can be inflammatory on the body as well if you're prone to inflammation. So being cautious around that and saturated fats, and then trying to increase the anti-inflammatory foods in the body. So your things like obviously your fruits and vegetables, but then things like turmeric and ginger, like you mentioned before, you're having some ginger. Things like that are really anti-inflammatory for the body. So I would start to focus internally a little bit more than externally. definitely externally there's lots of things you can do, but every person's different in how they react with topical things. So calendula cream is one of the things I often use because it's quite soothing for the skin and has a lot of healing properties. But things like aloe vera and stuff as well are really great, but just being cautious around that in case you are a bit sensitive.
What was the cream you said? The cream?
Calendula.
Calendula. Thanks
with
so
a
much.
C.
You've been
Yep.
so helpful.
Oh, no worries.
Bernadette, thank you so much for your call. 1-800-316-316 if you'd like to join in our conversation. There's all sorts of dimensions here. We could do all sorts of, diagnoses and, recommending remedies. There's all sorts of dimensions too listeners might be interested to talk about. Let's take another call. Belinda is in Portland in Victoria. Hey, Belinda.
Good morning. How are you both?
Very good. What are your thoughts, Belinda?
Just wanting to talk about when you talk about Reiki, and like I sort of avoid any naturopath that uses Reiki because I just am not sure what they're actually channeling when you're giving that therapy. Like I've read that it's about your life forces and etc. But on my side of looking at it, is that not a spiritual practice that you? Or I just wanted to ask you that question.
Is it a spiritual practice? Is that your question?
Yeah, because you're not channeling in a life force that isn't that. Should we not just channel through God to heal people?
Yeah, absolutely. So Reiki is energetic medicine, and I wouldn't say that all energetic medicine is bad, but definitely where you are not incorporating God into that energy healing, there can be major spiritual consequences of that, and definitely most people that I have met who practice Reiki are quite into the spiritual New Age space as well. So they are very much incorporating not just the energy side, but also that spiritual guidance, which if it's not rooted in God, then is dangerous.
And interesting, while we've got Belinda on the line here, when we think about God and he is, over all, he is our transcendent God. He is all-powerful. We never really necessarily communicate things about him as though it's, channeling his spiritual power.
Yes.
We might talk about the power of God coming in the name of Jesus. I mean, there's a big difference, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so definitely relying on, when you're praying for somebody, relying on the Holy Spirit's leading, that can definitely be a part of it to highlight things that may need healing or to be released and things like that. But definitely when there's, channeling through the body, which is done by a person that's not based in God, there can be a lot of danger in that.
Belinda in Portland, thank you so much for your call. Now, our talkback line remains open. We'll take some more calls after Vision National News. Now, you might have your own thoughts. You might want to just, share a few thoughts on what you are seeking as some sort of remedy, something that there doesn't appear to be any, at this point, healing remedy that's coming from mainstream medicine, and you might like to run that by our special guest. I think the conversation, if I'm saying this is not a conversation about how spiritual your practice is, because you said at the beginning of our conversation, Esther, you've got a scientific-based practice. Yes, there is a spirituality. It is a Christian spirituality, and you're relying on our Almighty God.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that you're doing all sorts of weirdy sort of stuff.
No.
Channeling the power and, saying special prayers like incantations. I think there's a challenging thought that some listeners might have. But I do want to invite listeners, join in our conversation, 1-800-316-316. We're into I think you'd call it a controversial conversation. Controversial for some. For others, it's like a breath of fresh air. We're talking Christians and natural medicine and exploring some elements of health and faith. With a special guest who integrates her Christian faith into her naturopathic practice. Now, naturopathy deals with natural medicine, As an alternative approach to mainstream medicine, some Christians express concern about naturopathy because of perceived philosophical ties to New Age spirituality. So how does Christian faith align with naturopathic practice? And after all, the concept of natural remedies is for many listeners a high priority. There's considerable doubt over the power and influence to and the integrity of mainstream medicine pushed by Big Pharma. Well, a conversation today about natural remedies and discussing connection to biblical teachings too. Esther Thomas is our guest, Christian clinical naturopath. She's the founder of Olea Health, a clinic that emphasises healing for body, mind and spirit. 1800 316 316. Send us a text on 0447 488 316. Esther, I think we should continue to take some calls from listeners. Yep. Faye is in Tamworth in New South Wales. Hello, Faye. Welcome.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much. This is an amazing program, not just this program, but everyone you do every day. Look, I just want to advocate for herb-based products. I call them foods because I had a mitral valve prolapse once, and it either had to be replaced or repaired. We're getting on to herb-based products. That operation did not have to take place. Wow. So it was amazing.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask some help with today, there's so much talk about gut health, and there's so many different ways of fixing gut health up. And I'm just wondering if you can give me, your recipe or the best recipe for fixing gut health up, because I believe that it's the cause of lots of problems.
Lots of people are concerned about gut health. Esther, your thoughts here for Faye?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talk around gut health because gut is really the powerhouse of the body in a lot of ways. It's like its own universe, and there are so many connections to our gut. And I recently did a podcast with somebody where we analysed his gut health in connection to mental health. So there's so many different aspects. And the thing with gut health is it's not one size fits all. So with your gut, you can have, for example, an overgrowth of bad bacteria. You can have parasites. You can have other things that are going on in the gut. You can have what we call intestinal permeability, which is aka leaky gut. You can have SIBO. You can have lots of different things going on. Commonly, one thing that I see is low good bacteria in the gut, which is often the culprit to a lot of gut issues, and where that connection to mental health and everything can be as well. And this can be from antibiotic use in the past, this can be from other pharmaceutical medications, it can be from stress, it can be from poor diet. So the thing with gut is it's hard to say do this because everyone is so different, and how I often will treat gut is reducing inflammation is one of the key things, making sure your body has got enough digestive enzymes so that your body is breaking down food really well. One key area is diversifying your plant intake. So the research suggests that we should be having about 30 different plants per week in order to have a really healthy gut microbiome. So eating a diverse range of plant foods, so fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds, those types of things. But if you're wanting to go more in depth, then I often would, with my patients, do a gut microbiome test. So we would look a bit deeper into the gut. This is done through a stool test. And we look at the microbiome, what's present in the good and the bad, what is there in terms of if there's any parasites or worms or anything else going on, so that we can target our treatment to that. But I would start with some prebiotics are basically the food for the gut. So prebiotic foods, and also taking some prebiotics like there's one called PHGG, which I commonly use, which is just basically a food for the good bacteria. I wouldn't be blanket...
Is that PHGG?
PHGG, so it's partially hydrolyzed guar gum. You should be able to buy that from any health food store. Basically, I wouldn't be blanket taking probiotics because we don't know if you're low in those particular bacteria. Sometimes this can cause more harm than good. So I would be focusing more on prebiotic foods, diversifying how much plants you're eating to start off with.
Faye, is that helpful?
That is so helpful. And I just want to encourage people to have more herbs. But, ultimately, it's God using these herbs that heals our body, which is, we've just got so much to be thankful to Him for.
Absolutely.
Faye in Tamworth in New South Wales. Faye, thank you so much for your call. Our talkback line open on 1800 316 316. Some texts coming through too. Here's one that's a little bit open-ended. Sia in Adelaide says, hello, question for Esther. What's your favourite recipe?
Oh, that's a tricky question, Sia.
Chocolate cake.
I really enjoy cooking, so I often don't use recipes. I'm one of those people that just kind of wings it and hopes for the best. The only time that has not gone good for me is one time when I tried to make sourdough bread. But outside of that, but what I tend to really enjoy making is like nourish bowls, because you're ticking all of the boxes of a complete meal with that. So your nourish bowls usually contain some kind of good carbohydrate, like some quinoa or brown rice, usually a diverse range of vegetables, maybe some edamame in there for some protein, and then also a meat-based or plant-based protein with it, and then some sauerkraut or kimchi, something like that for your gut, and then extra virgin olive oil and lemon juice, because you're kind of ticking all of the boxes there of your veggies and your proteins and your carbohydrates and your gut health. So
wonderful stuff. I think everyone's got their favourite recipe, but there might be some ingredients you can add to it that make it a healthier version.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and another text came from Louise, who said, thank you, Esther, for practicing naturopathy as God has shown in the Word. There are too many naturopaths out there who practice New Age and lead people in the wrong direction, which is what happened to me as a young woman. I'm now in my 50s and have come out of New Age and am born again, but still use natural medicine and feel blessed to come out of it. Thank you. What are your thoughts for Louise?
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that in your earlier years, and certainly, like I mentioned before, New Age can intertwine with some natural medicine practitioners. Again, what I would come back to is finding a naturopath that's degree qualified. Most naturopaths who are degree qualified won't practice in a spiritual way. They will practice science-based. So sometimes people do call themselves naturopaths that don't have a degree. So just being mindful of that and researching your naturopath before. They don't necessarily have to be a Christian. They just have to be somebody who's practicing, in that science-based backed research point of view. Obviously ideal if you can find a Christian, but many naturopaths that I know that aren't Christians don't practice anything spiritual. So just being mindful of that, that they can intertwine sometimes.
Let's take another call. Donovan is in Pengelly in Western Australia. Hey, Donovan, welcome.
Hi there. Yeah, my question is what to take to enhance the recovery of a hip replacement, especially the growth of the bone around the implant.
Yep. Yeah, okay. So I would be supporting definitely taking some omega-3s, so a really good quality fish oil supplement or a plant-based omega-3, incorporating a lot of those good fats into your diet as well, so your extra virgin olive oil, things like that, because they're very anti-inflammatory. Another thing that has a lot of research around your bones is turmeric, because of its anti-inflammatory properties, so that's really good, and some research suggests that it also reduces the degradation of bone in bone conditions, arthritis, those types of things. And then I would be focusing on things like vitamin D and a good form of calcium so that your bones can continue to grow strong. And vitamin D really helps that calcium absorption. Not just blanketly taking a calcium supplement though, making sure it's a good quality, well-absorbed one that's right for you.
Is that helpful, Donovan?
Yes, that helps a lot. Thank you so much for that.
No worries.
Donovan in Pengelly in WA, thank you so much for your call. 1800 316 316. And you can send us a text on 0447 488 316. Not sure we'll get through everyone here today, but Wendy in Springshaw sent us a text. Good morning, I'm very healthy, but woke up last week with severe pain in my fingers, and it stayed worse. I don't eat junk food or sugar. I eat lots of anti-inflammatory foods. Any help, or should I make peace with it?
Oh.
Kind regards. Thoughts for Wendy?
Yeah, definitely. As the cooler weather is happening, this tends to be the time that you can notice more stiffness in your bones. There potentially could be a little bit of arthritis happening or some inflammation happening there. So again, I would be focusing on a really good quality fish oil supplement and taking that at a good dose as well, which is why it's always good to see a practitioner, because you can get the right dosage, because what's on the bottle isn't necessarily always the therapeutic dose. And then again, I'd be focusing on turmeric because of its anti-inflammatory properties. So you can take this in capsule form or incorporate it into your diet. Ginger's also a really good one. I've treated lots of patients with arthritis and stiffness in their hands, and commonly we use anti-inflammatories as well as sometimes if there's bone issues, we will focus on that. But if it's more of the inflammation side of things, we'll treat it with those types of things and see really great results.
Another text from Akila who says, what remedies can Esther suggest for dyshydroic eczema, which I have some and have now developed last year and can't get rid of with topical steroid cream. Thoughts for Akila?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of different forms of eczema and there's a lot of different causes of eczema. Eczema is something that I see a lot of in clinic. Often eczema comes back to the gut and the gut microbiome, so making sure you have a healthy and happy microbiome, because if you don't, it's usually going to come out on the skin. Another common culprit for eczema can be things like excess histamine in the body. So if your body isn't clearing histamine effectively, or you're eating high histamine foods, or a bit more sensitive in terms of things like allergies and pollens and dog hair and things like that, you may be a bit higher in histamine. So focusing on liver support to clear out histamines, focusing on a low histamine diet. There's some of the places that I start. Often food intolerances as well can come into play with eczema, stress. Sometimes there can be external elements as well, so reactions to your environment. So some places to start, but definitely it's one of those ones that you often have to dig a little bit deeper because eczema can be a bit tricky to treat.
Hope that's helpful, Akila. Hey, our special guest is Esther Thomas, a Christian clinical naturopath, founder of Olea Health, a clinic that emphasises healing for body, mind and spirit. Let's take another call. Scott is in Point Cook. Hello, Scott. Welcome.
Morning, Neil. Morning, Esther. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, natural health has been a big part of my health journey for many years.
Awesome.
And I remember a naturopath I used to go and see in the past, she referred to it as complementary medicine rather than as alternative.
Absolutely.
Because the example she gave, she said, was she involved in a car accident? Send me to hospital, get my injuries dealt with by the surgeon. Then afterwards, give me a naturopath to heal me.
Absolutely. Yep. I definitely refer to it as complementary medicine as well.
And that's an important point, isn't it? Because when we're talking natural remedies and we're bringing a Christian view of that, even a biblical foundation, calling it alternative puts it into a realm of that sort of Eastern mystical witch's brew type thing. But yes, complementary medicine, this is something that you can specialise in, and the natural remedy, different to maybe the orthodox medicine, but it is a complement, not an alternative necessarily.
Yes, absolutely. So many of my patients are on medications and we will work alongside that. Like you say, especially in acute times and emergencies, mainstream medicine is really essential. Myself, I've been to the hospital before. Definitely there's a place for both. And really what our aim and where we thrive as naturopaths is that root cause preventative medicine. So kind of, really building the foundations of health and focusing on healing the body into the future.
Thank you so much to Scott in Point Cook. Let's take another call. Karen is in Maruya in New South Wales. Hey, Karen, welcome.
Hello, Neil. How are you?
You're very good. What are your thoughts here, Karen?
Family. I was just wondering. Now, I'm pretty sure I've had a long-term problem with chronic fatigue, and I found out about halfway through that it connected mainly with the Candida type of chronic fatigue.
Yep.
So have I been doing the wrong thing I just thought of it recently. Should I be eating sourdough breads and things? Because I love them, but I thought that's maybe doing the wrong thing because of the Candida.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So definitely Candida can cause fatigue. There's lots of other things as well, like Epstein-Barr virus, like glandular fever and things like that as well. And Candida definitely feeds off sugars. So if you do have Candida, which you can get tested for, then it actually is quite a strict protocol where you have to basically cut out all sugars, including fruit and breads and everything like that for a period of time. And then at the same time, you're focusing on rebuilding the good bacteria of the gut. So it is quite a specific protocol, and it is quite tricky to treat sometimes Candida. So I would be probably seeing a naturopath if you can, just so you can get a bit more guidance, because otherwise it can take a long time and you're kind of stabbing in the dark. But yeah, I would be, if you do have Candida, I would be avoiding bread and following the Candida diet for a period of time, as well as taking some specific
I know.
probiotics.
I have tried those different things over time, and I couldn't stick to them. But anyway,
it's tricky. But there's a lot of elements to chronic fatigue, so there may be some other things going on as well.
Karen in Maruya in New South Wales, thank you so much, Karen, for your contribution. A great question. Hey, James from Kyabram sent us a text. He said, I've been fortunate to have met a fellow, Troy Hoffman, from the Australian Nutritional Institute of Health. They provide the best food types for blood types. They have free pages for all blood types. Troy magnified a drop of blood 10,000 times and showed and explained each of my system's needs. I was low in good oils, causing some blood cells to stick together. Very informative. He was able to upgrade everyone's metabolism. I've never regretted it. Is that a relevant thing that you can do as a sort of a test? Get that sort of blood test?
That's not something that I personally practice. And we do have in the clinic, we do live blood screening. So we do sometimes look at your blood under the microscope. But when we do that, we're more looking for inflammation levels and things like that. But it sounds like you've gotten a lot of benefit from that, which is really, really great. But personally, and I know most of the other naturopaths I know don't specifically do that. And but yeah, there's a lot of different offshoots of natural medicine. So you'll find different practitioners will practice in different ways, but and your blood type can play into that, and eating right for your blood type.
There's a lot of texts have come through today, and we are not going to be able to get through to them all. No. And thanks, everyone. I'll make sure that Esther sees those, and she may be able to respond. That might put her under a bit of pressure, but there's an awful lot of texts there today. Hey, just to top off our conversation, perhaps draw some loose ends together. We discovered that naturopathy, and as a Christian practitioner, separates you dynamically from things that you might say are New Age based. And for Christians, we certainly wouldn't recommend anybody get involved with New Age type of alternatives. But when we're talking mainstream medicine and naturopathy, I mentioned to you, is it one or the other or both? I mean, are you against mainstream medicine? Is there, obviously, you might have your own thoughts here, but we talked about complementary medicine.
Yep.
How do you see naturopathy in the context of what all of those sorts of healing remedies that are available?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely don't see that it's one or the other. I do see that there's a place for both, absolutely. What I do have an issue with is overprescribing of pharmaceuticals, and where in oftentimes things can be treated naturally or through your diet or through supplements. sometimes when you go on a pharmaceutical, it can be very difficult to come off of it. So if it is something that is not life-threatening, then I would always be getting a second opinion and just seeing if there are some ways that we can get to a little bit more of the root cause of why are you having those issues, what's going on here, so we can treat that and manage that in the long term through your diet, through your lifestyle, through making sure your body has adequate nutrition and your levels are all good in your blood tests and everything like that. So there's definitely a place for both. And yeah.
You know what? There's a question I've got to ask. We've got to squeeze it in before we go, and it's controversial, but I know some listeners might be interested in a brief response, and we could probably have a whole segment, and maybe not even with you as the practitioner, but there's some other ministry people that we can talk to around these sorts of things. But if you've been a naturopathic-styled person, and you've had connections with some of those Eastern mystical witches brew, you mentioned Reiki and some other ways that you'd align with sort of a new age mentality, and they come to you as a Christian naturopath, and you've got a different way of talking about how the power of God works in that healing. They've come from a background where they've maybe even had someone praying over them, all sorts of weird incantations. Do those sorts of people need some sort of deliverance from that background? I'm not expecting a big theological response from you, but just a brief response. What are your thoughts here?
Yes, I would say in a lot of those cases, there is probably some deliverance that does need to happen, because the spiritual realm is so prevalent and we don't always see it, but we have to be so careful of what we allow in. And unfortunately, we're exposed to so many things that we don't even realize sometimes can be affecting us, even in our health. And I know this for myself personally. I've definitely had release of certain things that I wasn't even aware of that were there over the years. So definitely, if you've been involved in something like that and you've never really had prayer to be released of those things, then I would say that that is probably a part of your journey that would be really beneficial and needed.
Well, Esther, I think it's been such a valuable conversation that we've been able to have over this past hour. And there might be listeners who are thinking, I might send that podcast link on to some people who might need to hear some of the things we're talking about today. Esther Thomas is a Christian clinical naturopath. And, just to get that context right, she says her practice is scientific based, but she's a Christian practitioner, so she recognises that there's a spiritual dimension to the things that she does. She's the founder of Olea Health, Olea Health, a clinic that emphasises healing for body, mind and spirit. You can connect with Esther at her website, oleahealth.com.au. That's oleahealth.com.au. And I think we should do this again another day, Esther. Clearly, there's a lot of listeners who are interested in a natural response for the challenges that they're facing. And certainly, I look forward to another opportunity on another day. But thank you so much for being with us on 2020.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. And for those that are listening from other states, I see people all across Australia via telehealth. So if you're not here in the Brisbane area, then you're more than welcome to see me online as well. I would love to have a chat with you.